Well, welcome everyone, and I appreciate everyone joining us today. My name is Tomlin Festi. I'm the founder and CEO of the Law Practice Exchange, and I greatly appreciate your interest in joining us today for three keys to selling your law firm on your terms. And overall, when we talk about this, one, I appreciate you devoting the time and attention to it. It's what we do day in and day out, but the fact that you've taken this first step truly to learning about the sale process or an exit process or retirement, whatever you want to call it, is a great first step. Knowledge is power, and we're here to hopefully give you knowledge to know what options and what your path may look like if when you're ready to exit your law firm. That is a business that you've built or your law practice so that you can make sure that legacy that you have built carries on and continues to do the greatness that you have built it with. And so overall, this is a learning process. It's also hopefully a motivation process. I want to motivate you to believe in what you've built, believe in the legacy opportunity that you have, and to take those next steps with the power and everything else to do that. So I'm getting some, they can't hear me. Let's see, any better on audio? If you want to throw in the chat or the panel or anything else from audio side, any better from that side? Attendees, if you could just put in the Q&A, if you can hear Tomlin Festi, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, thanks, Seth. I appreciate it. All right, so we'll roll on. That might be a technical issue with one or other individuals, so we'll kind of roll on from there. So all right, so let's get started. Let's get rolling again. Tomlin Festi, happy to have you with us here today. We'll try to move through as quickly as possible, but also if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Go ahead and put them in the Q&A. Heather Pierre on our team will be monitoring that. Hopefully stop me if there's questions to be answered. And I'll try to stick around at the end also to answer any questions you may have and you want to put in there that we don't get answered. So let's get rolling on three keys to selling your law firm on your terms. So the first thing we want to focus on, right, is unlocking value, choosing your path, and controlling your timeline, right? Unlock value, choose your path, and control your timeline. That's a prelude to the three keys to how we do this. And I want you to visualize when we look at doing this, right, that we look at what happens, truly, what happens if you don't have a plan. Imagine that you're sitting in your office, right? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whenever you think that potential exit to the plan may be, and you're sitting there in the same stage you are today. No plan, no buyer, and essentially your team, your business, your clients, the succession plan, the legacy may be in limbo. And we receive those calls every day. I meant to do this. I was going to do this. I started, but I didn't really go through the implementation. I didn't find that sale or succession plan. And so if you were sitting in your chair, in your office at that point in time where you wanted to retire, but you didn't have a plan, what would that feel like? Hopefully some anxiety, some fear, some other things that we're going to take care of today. But that's really the overall key part is if, and when you actually do accomplish this plan, it's really to look at what it would mean for your firm. When you've built something, a business or otherwise, you've truly built something and you want to see it continue on to do the things that you built it to do. Take care of clients, take care of your team of employees, right? Serve the community, serve the industry that you've been in, right? Continue that great legacy. So overall, what would it mean for your legacy if you didn't have a plan and you don't implement a plan? But also, what would it mean for your legacy when you accomplish your plan? And I really want you to use that as just that gut feeling of you can do it, you can accomplish it, and it can be done. But inaction really doesn't help you move any closer to that. So again, Look at that anxiety, that fear of if I were there and didn't have a plan, but let's take those motivational items and steps to accomplishing taking those first steps. Because the real cost of no plan is sudden retirement, illness, missed opportunities. All these things happen. At the Law Practice Exchange, we receive calls every day of a spouse has come down with an illness. They have passed away, right? I want to retire or I need to retire. I was on a call yesterday with a father to a son who's the attorney. The father had actually had his own law firm and completed a succession plan years ago. Son, commercial real estate attorney, terminal illness, been fighting it for years, and now is the time. They have to implement a plan due to health and illness. Not a great thing. Life happens and they're forced to sell. We don't want that to happen and to surprise us into sell. We want to control our timeline. We want to control the path that we have. And when we can control by making decisions, and look, guys, as attorneys, we like to control things. We like to plan. We're contingency planners through and through. And so overall, not doing things, right, leads to client loss, leads to our good tenured team of employees not having a business to return to if or when one of these events happens. It leads to loss of value. You've built value within your business, within your law, that value on to the next generation, if nothing else. And so overall, all these things that can happen, right? Turn it from loss of control, which is really when you don't have a plan, to taking control, to really saying, I am going to have a plan for that. And you can have a plan that is going to preserve that legacy, benefit you in the financial outcome, and making sure that what you have built will continue in the future. I tell everybody succession planning or sale of a law firm or anything else is really just think of your law firm as this bullet train, right? It's just going along. And the only question is when you want to get off that train, right? The firm's going to continue on. If you have successfully completed, and when you go through this process, you will successfully complete a sale or a succession or an exit strategy, your firm can continue on without you. I know that's scary for some. That's the loss of control. But with that, change of control, with you deciding your timeline, your path, your others, also comes opportunity, financial opportunity. You get more personal time back to explore your retirement and things that you would enjoy. All of these things can continue. And the best thing is it preserves that legacy. That bullet train keeps going and keeps serving, keeps the great team together, keeps taking care of clients to carry forward. So otherwise, know that, the real cost of no plan is there and it's significant, but the opportunity to control is great. And you can just do that by taking those next steps. And so let's talk about why maybe you're here and why you haven't taken those next steps. One, you probably know it's time, but you feel stuck. A lot of times when we talk to individuals, especially attorneys, we like knowledge, right? We like to know not just step one, but step 10. And so overall, sometimes that hesitancy to move forward is just knowledge on the process, knowledge on, what I built, how it would work. Well, that's why you're here today, right? To learn and go through them. But you're unsure of maybe where to get started. You're overwhelmed and scared of change. And the last part is it's emotional. We've already hit on that. Fear of loss of control, fear of retirement for attorneys. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. That's what I do. What would I do if I'm not a lawyer? But the overall is those fears can prevent you from taking the steps. And when they do, that leads to the disaster. That leads to the loss of that legacy. But overall, if you say, yeah, I'm a lawyer and I built something, a professional legacy that I want to preserve, a business that I want to see carry forward. And in part of that, I know it's emotional that things are going to change, right? But if I find the right successor and I implement that right plan, I get to control it, that plan. I get to control it. And man, the opportunities that could really come out this far outweigh any emotional concerns that I have about change of control, about fear of retirement, right? I can control what the plan's going to look like. And that's the power you need to really look at is you can control it now. or you can lose control later. So know that those emotional block is there, but when you really look at the opportunity, it outweighs any of those fears. What's holding you back? All these things that we've kind of heard. Hey, look, I'm an attorney. My client's been with me for years. I don't think they'll accept anybody else, right? No one can fill my shoes. I'm very unique. You are, absolutely. But there is always a path or a plan and a succession option for you. Truly. Time it may take to find the one, right? Or the firm or anything else, but don't let that hold you back. My clients need me. Absolutely, they do. But they also need you to plan for your legacy and they need you to plan for your succession, right? By my roots, I was an estate planning attorney, business corporate, did lots of succession plans for, right, other businesses, other professional businesses. And I always would tell clients when I would introduce associates, other team, support members, this is my succession plan, right? I'm building one for you or I'm helping implement one for you, but this team is my succession plan. And so overall, don't let that hold you back. Your clients do need you, but they need you while you're here and when you're ready to retire, when you're ready to exit, when you're not here, right? And then the overall fear, I'm not ready to retire. Like I'm a law firm owner, but I don't want to retire. I know I kind of need a succession plan, but overall, I've hit on it already, right? Shift the mindset. Fear stems from the unknown, not the fact of retirement. And selling your law firm or having a succession plan has nothing to do with you staying on to practice law. If you want to practice law until the day that you leave this earth, you can do so. Most of the buyers, the successors that you would find would be delighted and actually want you to stick around for a good period of time or forever. You're an expert attorney in your field. They would love to have you stay on to help transition clients, to help do good expertise in legal work, all of these different things. So it's not really about practicing law. It's about having a succession plan, a continuation plan for the firm that you've built. And I know I've spent a lot of time in going through the emotions, right? The if you don't have a plan, this will happen. But I will tell you, I've been at this for a while, and most of you on this call, right, will want to do something, but potentially won't do it because of one of these things, because of this emotional block, this fear of loss of control, this fear of retirement, this lack of knowledge. Maybe it's a lack of time, right? Not prioritizing where it needs to be because it's easier to prioritize other things. You've taken this first step. I want to motivate you to take the next steps. And as we go through that, I'm going to share knowledge with you. Hopefully, that will continue to empower this motivation, this emotional check that we can put in place to truly preserve your legacy and take those next steps. So, this is me, Tom Winfesti. Call me a law firm architect. I've been at this for 13 years almost, right? Started the Law Practice Exchange back in 2013. I'm an attorney, CPA. I was in private practice for years before that, helping clients build succession, build estate plans, and truly got jealous. How could others out there, other professional businesses, dentists, CPAs, otherwise, figure out how to sell their firms, how to complete succession plans? But it didn't seem like law firms had the opportunity to do so. So since 2013, we've been educating and helping transact, advise, and carry forth really the transition of law firms, creating continuation plans for what's been built and moving it to the next generation of ownership. Thousands of firms here in the US, Canada, some European countries, we've helped them all on transition, help them all preserve and continue forward. Over 300 million in revenues transactions that we've helped move and preserve as part of that. And all we do is law firms. Everybody asks us, you don't do other professional businesses? No. All we have done in the life of the Law Practice Exchange is law firms because they're unique enough to keep us very busy. And you as lawyers are unique enough to we need to understand the differences in practice area, in valuation, in what makes a market deal possible, in succession parameters, in what makes deals successful and what doesn't. And overall, we're happy to claim that leadership in this marketplace. I'm pretty sure if you look around, you would find that we are the leader in the market and we're happy to be there. We launched the marketplace for buying and selling law firms last year. We have 1,400 users, buyers and sellers in that marketplace that are there to help search, match, connect, and complete deals. We help value firms on a daily basis. We're working with probably 15, 20 law firms to help law firm valuations. And we do all of this to help law firm owners, law practice owners like yourself, truly create that succession plan, that sale plan, that retirement plan that's going to work for you and find the right partner to do so, right? That right buyer, that right successor, whether internal or in the marketplace. And overall, I've been there. I have transitioned out of my own firm years ago to move into law practice exchange full time. And as part of that, I've gone through it personally, and I know some of the things I should have done, better and use those and applied it going forward. So overall, we are here to help, and we have the expert team to help you and the experience and the process that's proven over the years to make sure it can be successful for you. So again, this is another one of don't fear it, right? Know that this process can work for you. All right, let's get into the good stuff, which is what you're here for and what I hope you're going to walk away with today. Three keys that we're going to talk about to selling your law firm on your terms. And overall, what I want you to walk away with is how to get clarity on your value, right? And the options that are available to you. What will happen if you don't act? I think we've covered some of that already. And then how to take the next step today. Truly, I do want you to take the next step today. I want you to take this knowledge, this motivation, and everything else and really move forward from there. All right. First key to selling your law firm. You can't do anything if you do not know the value of your firm. It's just like if you were going to sell your house, right? If you're going to put your house on the market, there is no way you're going to do that without checking some value metrics to know what it's worth, right? If houses in your neighborhood are selling for something and you can figure out, that, you're going to get a realtor, you're going to get somebody to give you appraisal to know what it's worth. And that's why that's the first part in the process. You cannot truly know what options and what path may be available to you if you don't know the value of what you've built, right? Each law firm, each law practice we've seen over the years is unique. There is a standardized process to go through and try to pull that uniqueness out to determine what market value would be. We're going to look at revenue. We're going to look at your team. We're going to look at your systems. We're going to look at how this can really transition and carry forward, right? Overall, I'll tell you that law firm valuation comes down to three core aspects for your firm, for any firm. Number one is financials, right? We're looking mostly at net income, like how much as an owner do you benefit from owning this firm? But we're looking at revenues. We're looking at case inventory if you're a plaintiff firm or anything else. We're looking to these different assets and income and expense and revenue streams that go into making your business healthy for you and what can be transitioned to somebody else, right? Financials, number one. Number two is your brand. I'll call it your uniqueness, right? Why is your firm unique? Is it your team? Is it your brand? Is it your marketing? Is it your place in the community, your place in the industry that you serve, right? What makes it truly unique? And when we talk about uniqueness, right, you're talking about this overall concept of goodwill value. It's really what is really hard that you've done and built that would be harder for somebody just to repeat and do quickly. And that is what somebody's willing to pay for. If you have clients that know you and keep coming in, a community that respects you and keeps coming to your firm for services, an individual personal brand that you've established as an expertise, right? All of that is your uniqueness. And all of that is something that goes to the value of your practice, your firm, and that somebody is willing to pay for and to try to acquire and transition into because it's hard. I mean, it's probably taken you 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years to do so. And in doing so, right, you've built this uniqueness, this barrier where it'd be a little bit harder. As an example, the first firm we ever transacted was one of the smallest towns in North Carolina. That's our home base in North Carolina. We serve firms across the country, but when I started out, it was this really small town, and we found an attorney that wanted to return home. He had gone up to law school up in the north, got married, right, was practicing with the firm, but he wanted to come home. And instead of coming home and hanging his own shingle and starting from down here, he essentially bought and took over as a succession, partnership type structure, the brand for that small town. That attorney that had been there for 50 years and everybody knew and everybody sent their clients to, right? He bought that firm and they developed a succession plan to transition. So he was able to start up here instead of down here. And that was the opportunity for him, right? To come in, one, have a great mentor, two, use the systems that have already been built, everything else, the strong financials case, but he got the brand. And that was really what he wanted to do. And it worked tremendously well for that just small community. And the third piece, besides financials, brand, or your uniqueness, and the third piece really is your systems. Those systems could be a yellow legal pad that you just have the same, checklist when you walk into every consult. It could be, complex, software that you've built within the firm. It could be the systems that your team knows to operate on, right? Complex to basic, how you get the work done and what could be transferred over to another is a key part of what you've built in just normal practice, right? Some firms have very complex systems. They have built their own software. Other firms have very basic ones, but overall, that's a key component of will this buyer be able to use what you've built to continue to get the work done? And that is part of your value that you've built. It could be a really strong part or it could be a really weak part. But overall, those three components, financials, your uniqueness, and your systems. I wanted to tell a little bit about Charles. Charles essentially is one of our past clients, and he really came in, right? And he was, excited to find a succession plan. But as he came in, he had really started to explore these different opportunities and everything else, and really hadn't counted. He was a personal injury attorney, hadn't really counted much value for his firm because he had all these referrals, right? He didn't really do a lot of website marketing, anything else. And so he just thought, hey, I don't know, it's me. I don't think that's going to have a lot of benefit. But he had two really good internal potentials to be the next generation, the next buyers. And overall on that, right, his goal was to pass that firm. Well, when we went through it, and once you value the firm, you really look at what he had built, he was the strongest attorney, the recipient of these referrals for MedMal in the state. And so overall, his brand was there and carry forward no problem. And he was going to transition, stay on board, everything else. It would take somebody so much marketing dollars to try to replace what those referrals are worth. And so he had undervalued really when he walked in. What we were able to do is really get a place where his two associates were able to buy in earlier for Charles, still get his retirement number that we needed, right? Everything else because of the value that his firm had. So don't discount the value, don't overinflate it, but don't discount the value of what you've built. Now, I want to go through a quick exercise. I want you to go through your gut value. If you're here attending this, hopefully you've thought about, right, the value of your firm. If you haven't, I want you to think about it now. And I want you to really look at really just a gut number, write it down, right? Take out a piece of paper and write it down as far as what you think the value of your firm would be. Go ahead. And the reason I'm asking you to do this is because if you're potentially low, if you're high, time will tell. Hopefully, your next step is you will get a valuation for your firm, whether it's with us or somebody else that knows it. You will get a valuation for your firm because you should be proud of what you built, and that should be a benchmark for you going forward. But really, just writing it down helps put a concept of, I built something that has value, and I should look to monetize that. I should either look to monetize it for me, for my family and loved ones, for my retirement, my fund money, for, building value and passing it on to other and next generation owners. Whatever you want to do, but you should be proud of the value built. And if you've never written it down or taken a guess at it, do it now. All right, so know your value. The law firm value is key number one to go through that. Number two, know your options. What are the options for selling a law firm? Truly, what are the structure options, anything else? Typically, right, it comes down to a few different ones. Internal buyers, you're talking about internal succession, associates, partners, other partners within your firm, mergers, right, combining with another practice, and then external buyers, really looking to the marketplace to find a firm, another attorney, an investor attorney. We've got kind of developing every day different categories of buyers out there that are looking to complete deals, right? But overall, when you're looking at these different options, there's hybrids in between, right? So if you're looking at an internal buyer, right, the easiest thing is usually that goes, if you're the solo owner, it becomes a partnership, at least by name, and then kind of carries forward. But they're buying out your equity. They're buying out the value of the firm, and there's a transition plan that becomes part of that, meaning, they're coming into equity as partnership. You're moving out over a timeline. You control the timeline. We'll talk about that later. But overall, that's something is you control. The caveat to that is that not every associate is a law firm owner. Not every associate is going to be your buyer. They may look good on paper, but they just may not be interested. They may not want the financial risk, the entrepreneurial risk, right? The working Saturdays and Sundays and late nights and in between risk. Overall, we've been through it. I'll give you another story. We went through it with a trust and estates practice, really great practice in the Southeast. Overall, right? Natural associate, really partner by name, non-equity, everything else had been in the firm for years. The clients knew him, the team, right? This was the heir apparent. And so we were brought in after a lot of discussions and time had been spent, but no movement to develop the value and then help implement the internal succession plan. The overall challenge with this was we went on value, negotiated that value. There's always negotiation, they're lawyers, but we negotiated that value to an agreeable amount. And everybody's head shaking. Moving on to next stage. And next stage really went into deal terms, attorneys drafting up contracts, things slowed down again. We got tagged back in to come and help move things forward, right? After doing the valuation, after bringing the deal together. And overall, when this finally kind of resolved itself, I just asked the buyer plainly, do you really want to buy the firm? I mean, you've said you do, but do you really want to? And they openly kind of said, I just don't. I've done some soul searching and I've gone through it. And I know the current owner works 7 days a week and I don't want to do it. I still carpool volleyball for my daughter on Thursdays. I want to be able to do that. My spouse works, makes good money. I don't need the financial income from the firm, even at its performance. I mean, the financial opportunity I see. I just don't want to take on that risk and extra burden of ownership. That's okay. It's truly okay. There are going to be associates, non-equity partners, junior partners that aren't going to want that next step. And that's why there's the external buyers. That's why there's the marketplace. That's why there's the opportunities. And so just because they're there doesn't mean they're going to be your buyer. And if you think they are, it's start the conversation early. Because the longer they're tenured as an employee, the less likely they are to be your next owner. I've just found that over the years of doing it. The longer they're an employee, the less likely they are to be your next owner. So overall, right, if you have a good employee, start that conversation early, get the value, start implementing that plan as fast as possible. Mergers, right? Combining with another practice. Think of counsel as well. In kind of this bucket is if you have a small practice, an expertise practice, anything else, joining a firm as of counsel, and then having a sale transaction, a succession plan where you're paid for the value of your firm and what you've built. But mergers are a great way, right? Especially in unique niche practice areas, anything else. We do lots of mergers, roll ups to other firms. They're great. They can work really well if you can find that right fit from a culture, from a client service aspect, but really work well, like I said, with certain expertise, niche practices, or we've seen a lot of mergers in like residential real estate where geographic expansion is a big thing. So for a residential real estate attorney to join, right, another practice, they built a big hub, a big machine, and they can take over a lot of the work, help on management, help on other things. and then just help, transition you out into exit retirement or just keep practicing and it's an easier practice life. So mergers are a great part of succession, sale, exit, especially with these new dynamic, bigger models that we're seeing out there on the buy side. And then the external buyers, right? The external buyers are really those marketplace. You don't have the internal option, right? Maybe you don't have that merger partner or anything else. It's really looking to, I need somebody. I need help finding somebody. Well, that's why we created the law practice exchange. I mean, openly, it was to have a marketplace, right, for you to find your successor, to find your buyer, because that exists in dental, CPA, medical, every other profession, and every other business. But prior to 2013, did not exist for lawyers. And so our goal was to build that and to do that. So you have options. And of our 1,400 in the marketplace, tech-enabled platform, we have another 4,000, buyers and sellers in our database overall that we built throughout the years. Two-thirds of those are buyers. Buyers outpace sellers, right? 5 to 1. We have more buyers, more buyers, more buyers. They're looking for good practices. And so the marketplace is really there to establish, to match, to find the right one. And hopefully, when you're looking at an internal buyer, like an associate, that's one option. The external buyers in the marketplace should give you more options. And that's really what you want. You want to have the opportunity to explore multiple options and choose the best fit. The best fit, maybe the best financials, but really the best fit. Like overall, like this is going to work great for my clients, for my firm, for the continuation, for the legacy, right? Fit over financials is a common theme you'll hear me say. And so overall, that's why the marketplace is so important. And that's really, the story about Nancy. Nancy thought she'd sell to a partner. I mean, the whole plan was to sell to a partner, be part of this firm, everything else. And it just didn't work out that way, right? She was part of a partnership, had to spin out, go on her own for a few years. She lost her succession plan as part of that. Well, her firm continued to grow. And then she had a health issue and had to look at succession sale because that was a responsible thing to do. She couldn't keep practicing. It was the responsible thing to do, but she was the only owner now. She didn't have partners in the firm. And so overall, what we did is we looked externally. And the most beautiful part about this was the options that were available to her. The options that were available to her versus, yeah, that's my partner, that's who's going to take it, or that's my associate, right? But the options were these other firms, these other entrepreneurial attorneys. And we were able to match through selection. She had basically 3 offers, like high tier offers, that she got to pick the best one based on fit. Financials could have been better under some other, but she chose based on fit because she saw the future. And it's been a great transition for her. I check in with Nancy periodically, and overall, it's been where she now takes 2, 3 week cruises with her husband and was able to still keep practicing because she wants to work with this new, owner who she calls a partner, and they are growing the firm together, right? They brought that. So overall, knowing your options. There's lots of other things in there that are possible, but knowing your options to carry forward. All right, key number 3. As we kind of wrap up and kind of look at this, really plan your timeline, right? Know your value, key number 1. Number 2, know your options. Number 3, plan your timeline. And I really mean that by like your timeline. Today, right? You should start planning. What you're doing right now is part of your strategic planning, learning, right? Taking notes, writing things down as you go forward. Tomorrow, key number 1, get a valuation for your firm and then know what options are there. A valuation is not just about the number. It's truly not about the number. It is about learning, right, what drives value in your firm and what a buyer is going to look for. It's about preparing your financials in a way so you can complete a deal. It's about knowing the strengths and the weaknesses of your firm so you can help discuss and develop a solid transition plan based on those strengths and weaknesses to make sure that you accomplish the goal of preserving and continuing on what your firm has done. And overall, it should set you up for determining what type of buyers, what path you want, right? You will have that knowledge once you see the overall valuation analysis. It's more than truly just a number. And year one, you want to explore and find that buyer. If you can start having those conversations tomorrow, absolutely. If you have an internal candidate, if you have a merger partner across town or a good peer that you know through the bar association or anything else, start today. Know your value and how it would look and what the options are and potential structure, because those conversations always lead to, yeah, I'm interested. What's next? And then you got to be ready to do what's next, right? Which is the valuation, is knowing the structures, knowing what is possible. And so go into it prepared, but start those conversations as early because they can take time, right? That first year that you would devote to really identifying and securing the buyer. Does it take 3 months? Maybe, right? Some of our fastest practices that have entered the market, get matches within like seconds, within minutes. The way our marketplace technology is kind of coordinated is like you enter, there's alert like, hey, there's a new estate planning practice area that entered the market, and you'll get buyer interest, but it takes time to really feed through and go through that fit, the financials, the deal structure, otherwise. So give yourself at least a year to find that right buyer. And then years two, three, four, five, whatever you want your timeline or whatever it needs to be, is those transition years, right? Law firm sales are transition based, meaning you as the seller aren't typically going anywhere post sale. As I tell everybody, this is labeled as like the three keys, but truly we don't do throw the keys transactions and walk out the door. We do baton passes. You pass the baton to that next generation owner, right? You're kind of transitioning over referral sources, clients, right? It's a very intentional, right? Intentional transition. And if you're not going anywhere, you want to keep practicing law, that's an easier transition. Management, the burden of running payroll, the burden of, overseeing marketing, website, everything else, a lot of that can move pretty quickly. And then you just get to continue to practice or maybe part-time practice. We've had attorneys before that want to stay part-time, but only doing certain things. Like we've had some of our plaintiff lawyers say, I can win or lose cases, right, at depositions. That's what I love. I want to do depositions on complex civil cases. And so they're going to move on to this, post-sale buyer team just as the deposition expert, that they can really be brought in on those high value cases to do that. And they can be flexible of when that happens, but they don't have to be there 5 days a week. They can be there when they want or the cases they want to work on for years. They're openly that one specifically was like 3 or 4 years ago. They're still working, right? But they're working on their cases they want to and their timeline and everything else and getting to enjoy personal time, retirement time outside of that. So the optimal window, everybody asks, when should I start planning? 3 years out, 5 years out? It's now. But you have to make sure you're giving yourself at least that 2 or 3 years to complete and find that transition. If you have a small town practice, you have a very unique brand, you have a really expert, practice, high expertise, high training, anything else, it's going to take you longer. Truly, it's going to take you longer to find a successor. So you need to give yourself longer than maybe 1 year, right? Maybe you give yourself 2 years, right? Maybe you give yourself 3 years to find that right one. Don't short yourself on time because when that happens, you lose options, you lose opportunities. If you give yourself time, you gain those options and opportunities, right? Truly, if you start earlier, you will always have the opportunity to say, no, not a good fit. No, I'm not ready at this point to do that type of deal, right? That's okay to say no, but the opportunities are there to say no to. When you call the Law Practice Exchange, and we're in like June of the year right now, and you call and say you want to be retired and out of your firm by the end of the year, it's too late. I mean, we'll give it all we have, but overall, it's, buyers aren't going to be excited about you trying to walk out the door in December. They want transition, right? It's going to take time to really see this through. So giving yourself time, ample time. It's never truly too early to start the process. We have firms all the time that start with evaluation. They're not anywhere close to selling their firm. They're just trying to know market value and what the options would be for selling their firm when they're ready in 10, 15 years. And they come back to us to get that valuation updated so often to make sure that they're building that value for their exit plan, for their retirement plan, anything else. That is what succession planning, sale planning is all about. It's really knowing that you've built that value. You want to know what your options and what your timeline is, and you continue forward as part of your strategic plan. And so planning your transition today, again, does not force the retirement tomorrow, right? Cliff was one of our sellers. And again, overall, his early planning really resulted in a higher premium because he gave himself time. He didn't have to complete a deal in 6 months, 12 months, anything else. We waited it out. And Cliff's practice was a little, interesting. For a lot of practices, we'll see an initial bump of buyer interest, everything else, and then it may slow a little while. But Cliff's was one of that he had some initial interest and we had to wait. But Cliff gave himself time to complete a deal, right? To complete the right deal. And he had a premium on the sale price. But overall, I would tell you he's got just a better fit. He found that better fit as a successor, the firm, everything else. Cliff had kind of a unique, kind of niche practice. And so it took a little bit of time to find the right one, but he started well before. He wasn't under any like 3 year, 4 year, 5 year. He's like, I just want to find the right one and I'm ready to complete a deal, but I'll stay on and work and transition and everything else post deal. I just know I need a succession plan, right? I'm ready to start slowing down. And so the sooner we can do that, the better. So I want you, as another exercise, to write down, what do you think your target exit date is? Look, we're sitting in 2025. If your target exit date is 2040, that's fine. Put it down. But if it's 2026, you need to get started now. Truly need to get started now. So you've written down kind of gut check on your value for your firm. And now you're going to write down what your target exit date is. And the reason, again, I want you to look at those two is know that you've built something that has value. You should be proud of that. Truly, you should be proud of that, that you have built something that has value. We can tell you what that value is. I would encourage you to do that, even if you're 10 years away from planning for your exit. Know exactly what that value is in the market. Know what your options are, right? But also know that timeline because giving yourself the timeline is the greatest asset. Losing time is the greatest liability. Truly, in this process, lots of time, tremendous asset. No time, big liability to finding the right fit or the right outcome for you. So again, hopefully you've written that down as the next state. Selling on your terms. We've talked about it. Know your value, know your options, and control your timeline. If you don't plan your exit, someone else will, right? All of us will exit our law firm at some point. We will, right? The question is, do you want to control how that happens? And that's the motivation. I want you to feel positive about what you've built. I want you to feel positive that there's options out there. And I want you to feel positive that you control your timeline. You can control that path and structure. And the key aspect to it is start with knowing the value of what you've built. Really, to look and see what your options are. And so I would encourage you to put some questions in the Q&A in the chat if you have any. I'm happy to stick around and answer those. I would also encourage you if you just have questions about where you would go, about the uniqueness of your practice. We hear it all the time. Is my practice sellable? What would the potential value be, right? Any of those different things. Book a confidential call with our team. Our team is there to help you decide on what path's right for you, what your timeline may be, right? What those options and structures available would be based on how things work in the market, right? Based on the uniqueness of what you've built. So overall, the things that I want you to do is take the knowledge learned, take hopefully the motivation, push aside that fear of like, retirement. I don't want to retire. I'm scared of retirement, whatever it would be. It's a fear. It truly is not a reality, right? Because at the end of the day, if you find the right succession plan, you will be more excited about seeing your legacy continue and you controlling your timeline versus it being forced on you. than any fear of retirement. I had a good attorney that we helped sell their practice who all through the process, right? All through the process kept reminding me, look, Tom, I told you, I've been running this show for decades. I am used to coming in and deciding how things are done. I control. I'm very, hesitant. I'm very concerned, right? Everything else would remind me of that as we go through everything, meeting buyers, right? Going to market, going through due diligence, deal terms. I don't like this, right? I don't know if I have control over this. Overall, though, we got and found the right buyer and the right fit for him. And when we closed that deal, I caught up with him like day two after that deal closed. And I said, well, hey, Chuck, how are things going? And Chuck responded, he said, you know how I was telling you that I was really fearful of loss of control? And it really did bother me, he said, throughout that process. What I didn't realize, though, is the opportunity, the benefits that come when you give up control. He said, I woke up yesterday realizing I didn't have to worry about making payroll this month. I didn't have to worry about showing up to the office first so that, my team, I could check in and manage. All of that was shifted. All of that was going to somebody else. I was relieved of these burdens that I'd been taking on forever because I had the control. Now I have opportunity. I have flexibility to my schedule. I can take trips, longer than, a few days. I can take multi-week vacations. All of these different things are benefits that have come because I gave up that control. And so just know that it's always a fear, it's always that concern and anything else, but the benefits are there that you really have to focus on. That's why I wanted you to write down your value. I want you to control your timeline. And so we've got a question that we've got a small town rural two-man practice in the middle of West Virginia. Do buyers usually want to stay on to help them transition your client base? Want you to stay on? So yeah, that's a great question. And so as we talked about the baton pass, so you've got a small town, rural practice, anything else. First thing, got to know the value of what you built. Second thing, you got to give yourself time to find the right buyer, right? And when you look at the right buyer overall, once you find it, they are going to want you to stick around. If you're a small practice and you built it based on your personal brands, reputation, especially in a small community, anything else, there's always that transition. I give the example of if your referral sources and your clients come from things like Rotary Club, serving in these different community activities, the being on Main Street, eating lunch here, and somebody coming up to you, that has to be transitioned. And so overall, yes, a buyer will want you to stick around. If nothing else, just to stick around to be what I call a goodwill ambassador, meaning you can walk around and be like, hey, have you met Joe yet? Have you met Susan yet? Right? They're great. They've joined our firm, right? Or we've merged in with their firm and everything else to continue to deliver the great service that we've done forever. You can be that goodwill ambassador to make sure the personal value that you've built or the firm value transitions over. And they may want you to stick around and if you want to do legal work as well. And so, yes, I would give yourself time. Small town practices always take a little bit more time to find buyers, right? Sometimes significant amount of time. So know your value, give yourself that more time to do so, but do plan on sticking around in some capacity. Absolutely. Another question. We're a husband and wife team and have three major practice areas. We feel like we have to break up our practice areas to sell. Our areas of practice are estate planning, family law, bankruptcy. What do you think? I don't like breaking up practice areas. We've been approached with it before by mostly buyers, but from sellers, typically there's a feed, right? Like the firm overall has been built as a brand, the marketing, the otherwise, the referral sources have been built to serve these different practice areas. And the revenues and the expenses are tied to those practice areas that produce that. And so you could do that, right? It depends on the nature of the firm, but usually we're trying to find a firm that can serve all three, right? And I know those are unique, but overall, if you find a firm that maybe does, two, and there's a transition that you can give to train and transition, or maybe bring in a co-counsel to service those, if let's say estate planning and probate is 70% of what you do, and family law is 25 and bankruptcy is only 5, well, then maybe you can transition fully, but you bring in co-counsel to handle those bankruptcy matters when they do pop up or otherwise, right? So overall, I would say you can look at that. Some states ethically, like California, prevent you from selling off pieces of the firm. There's different ways to do it through counsel relationships. But what I would say is trying to keep the value you've built. You built it that way for a reason. Try to keep that together and then transition to the right one to find that. But again, if bankruptcy is like 5% and you find somebody that's like, I just don't want bankruptcy, that has to be a decision for you to decide, do I want to give up that value or can you just co-counsel that out, right? We've done that on transactions as well, is two of the three may transfer over to the seller. They still have the right to hold the other, but you're co-counseling out the other stuff with somebody else totally, not part of those buyer transaction or anything else. So I would hold from splitting it up quickly, but if your uniqueness allows you to do so, then explore those, but find the right buyer and the right fit, and give yourself hopefully enough time to find a firm that could do all three. I would try to do that definitely. Great question though. Another question is, we're thinking of changing the name to a trade name of a firm so it is not heavily based on my personal name. Like I'm Joe Smith, I'm, Susan Jones, right? Susan Jones, attorney at law, and you want to change it to, estate planning, community law or something else from that side. I'm a big fan of trade names. I know individual state bars, most have accepted. I think there's some that it's a question mark of whether they've really put out an ethics opinion. But I would tell you, trade names have a great way to align and build value in the firm. We really didn't go into it in full detail because we do valuation talks. I mean, I do full workshops for a day on just law firm valuation. But overall, valuation is built up of firm value and personal value. If, Susan Jones, attorney at law, that's kind of over here in personal side. If you change it to, the estate planning law firm, that kind of moves over to firm value. And firm value usually transfers very easily, right? Like domain names, brand names, right? And you kind of see that. Like Susan Jones doesn't need to be around for, the estate planning law firm to transfer. And so usually, building brand, building marketing that's on the firm side is the best use of your dollars when you're looking at a solid exit transition. And just put yourself in the buyer's shoes, right? If a buyer comes forward and is looking at something that's labeled Susan Jones, attorney at law, and they're, Bob Smith, they have to sit there and say, can I get Susan Jones? Like, will people accept Bob Smith if they're coming to see Susan Jones? And so that's where trade names, right? Calling it something else, a business type name, builds value, but also helps buyers feel more confident that that value that you've built will transfer over to them, or it'll be a little bit easier to carry that forward. So yeah, great question on the trade name. Those are all really good questions. I want to open it up. Any other questions before we close this out? Otherwise, I will encourage you, take your phone out, look at that QR code on the screen right now. Snap, open it up, whatever. It'll take you directly to one of our team members to book a call, and you can book a 15-minute confidential call just to walk through, right? If your timeline's 10 years from now, great. You're not really looking for anything but information, but I would encourage you that knowledge is power. Knowing the value of what you built is powerful. It really just helps set things kind of, you see it differently. You see the opportunity. And so I would encourage everybody to know the value of their firm. So if that's something that interests you, book the call, discuss what that looks like as our valuation services. We can tell you we're the leader. We've got, I think, 400 and some comparable law firms that we've done over the years that we use as our real data points. We're looking at law firms. We're not looking at laundromats. We know what it takes to value and close these deals. And so our team's there to help you through this process and make sure it can be successful. If the QR code or anything else doesn't work for you, feel free to info@thelawpracticeexchange.com or check us out over there. You can do a get started form, anything else. But if you type in info at the Law Practice Exchange, you can really type in webinar call or anything else, and our team will help coordinate that for you. So again, I greatly appreciate you joining us. And QR code in the chat. Yeah, well, Heather, if Heather can put the info at the Law Practice Exchange in the chat, that might be the easiest, just to email directly and carry that forward. And again, these questions that you brought forward are perfect. And if you want to discuss in a confidential basis, that's what our team is here to do. Our goal is to make sure that every firm continues forward, right? That bullet train, that train exercise, I want to see that for every firm because you've built value and it would be a shame to lose that value. So let us know how we can help. Book your call, keep our information. Otherwise, make sure you're taking next steps, right? That's really the big thing. This is a great first step to attend this program. The next thing you do can be powerful. It can really start your path to success, to have a succession plan so that you're not sitting at your desk in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years without any progress. And we've had that, right? We've had that those that have attended programs contacted us years ago, and then just other things take priority. Don't let that happen to you. Book a call today, take that very next step, and hopefully our team can help you achieve whatever the best plan is for your practice and your firm on your timeline to get you the value that you deserve and the right structure that works for you. So thank you so much for joining. And I greatly appreciate it. If our team can answer any questions, shoot us an email, book that call, and we look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks so much.